Extreme metal music. Is it just noise? Is it just extreme wall of sound? Or is it actually viable music? Let's talk about it. Hello, and welcome to Tim Conley Drums. Today we're going to talk about a form of music that is often left behind, not thought about, not talked about. Very few people actually go to the concerts in terms of mass concerts. No, you never hear about it on the news, all that sort of thing. I'm talking about extreme metal. Okay. Now, extreme metal is actually a very, very interesting form of metal. Now, for those of you that don't know, arguably, in my opinion, the first metal band, Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath was the first metal band. But I personally believe the first metal song was Helter Skelter by the Beatles. That's my personal opinion. Those are my two go-tos when I think about metal. Helter Skelter, the song, and of course, Black Sabbath, the band. Now, metal music has evolved extremely since Black Sabbath, and we've had so many different bands. I don't think that any other form of music has more subgenres. So I've actually got a list of subgenres in the extreme metal genre that I'm going to list off here. So we have death metal, black metal, avant-garde metal, thrash metal, crossover trash, thrash, deathcore, doom metal, drone metal, folk metal, gothic metal, power metal, black gaze, death doom metal, death grind, grindcore, metalcore, Viking metal, biker metal, groove metal, beatdown hardcore, black and roll, black and death metal, funeral doom, melodic death metal. Now, that's a lot of extreme genres, in like extreme metal genres. That is a heck of a lot of it. Now, the subgenres, they all have their own following and they all have their own subgenre bands. It's actually incredible. Now, I probably missed some on that list. I probably missed some. You know, I don't listen to all of this subgenre music. Some of it I've listened to just for the purposes of checking it out. Now, the bands, some of them are popular. Some of these extreme metal bands are popular, but the majority of them, they live in the basement, so to speak. And I have two students that are heavy into extreme metal, and they are always telling me about bands that they'll go and see. Half of them I've never even heard of. They're just, they could be local bands, or some of them have a following, but it's very, very dark in the sense of it's not in the popular. You never hear them on the radio, of course. You would never hear them being advertised on TV or anything. So you have to seek these bands out. And there's some really great extreme metal bands out there, but you have to seek them out. Now, I also have a list of more popular, if you want to call it, metal bands. So in the extreme death metal genre, we have Death, Cannibal Corpse, Dying Fetus, Cryptopsy, Morbid Angel, Behemoth, Cattle Decapitation, Suffocation, Nile, Opeth, Carcass, Napalm Death, Meshuggah, Creator, Gorguts, Slipknot, Slayer, Dismember, Skinless, Origin, Celtic Frost, Infant Annihilator, Sepultura, The Berserker, Deeds of Flesh, Angel Corpse, Arch Enemy, Mortician, Children of Bodom, At the Gates. I mean, it goes on and on and on. I didn't name them all. There's just too many bands there. But you get an idea of the bands that I'm talking about. Now, I saw the drummer perform Infant Annihilator music at a drum clinic, and it was just unbelievable. I couldn't believe the speeds that he was achieving. I couldn't believe how the music changes so quickly, the drum fills that he was playing. It was absolutely insane. Now, in terms of seeing actual bands, I've seen Slipknot, I've seen Cannibal Corpse. Let me just look on this list to see if I can be reminded. Oh yes, I saw Cryptopsy, and Autopsy, I saw them as an opening band. The thing about these metal bands is they're not, like I said, they're not in the public view. So you have to seek out, even getting tickets sometimes can be difficult because they're just not popular bands. Now, in terms of sales, most of these bands do not achieve significant sales. Some of them do, but generally they don't reach out astronomically because they don't reach out the way mainstream rock, pop, funk, top 40, all that genre, that country music, all those genres reach out to the masses. This is a very niche genre, extreme metal, with its varied subgenres, death metal, black metal, grindcore, etc. It appeals to a smaller, way more dedicated audience. The guys and girls that listen to this music are dedicated fans. Now, the bands themselves tend to focus on the fan base, and they don't care about popularity. They don't care about appealing to the masses. They care about appealing to their fan base. So many extreme metal bands, their priority is building a strong and passionate following over mass market appeal. That's the bottom line with these type of bands. Now, in terms of commercial pressure, many bands will not cave to commercial pressure to, play songs that are more commercially and more popular to the masses. Now, Metallica, who I don't consider to be an extreme metal band at all, yes, they're early metal. Now, Metallica, in the beginning, they were one of these extreme metal bands. They were in the infancy of extreme metal. I consider Venom to be the very first sort of, the beginning of extreme metal. Metallica was there, and I actually enjoy early Metallica. But then, of course, as time moved along, Metallica became more and more commercial. And then, of course, Enter Sandman exploded. And then everything after that was pretty much commercial. And Metallica, I mean, they've made millions and millions, probably hundreds of millions of dollars. They're one of the biggest bands of all time. And they decided to go where the money is. I get it. But a lot of extreme metal bands just don't go to the extremes like Metallica have achieved. That is extremely it's extremely rare for extreme metal bands to achieve that kind of success that Metallica has achieved. I would say Metallica is the most successful in the metal genre, followed by Testament, maybe Static X. You've got your legendary band Black Sabbath, of course, but I don't consider that extreme metal in any way. That's the birth of metal, but not extreme. Most extreme bands that I mentioned on my list here, like I said, they've got a dedicated following. Now, Slipknot is an exception. Slipknot has a massive following, actually. They would make my list as well. I mentioned 3, but I also would have to throw Slipknot in there. Now, there are subgenre bands that are like popular in their subgenre. So, you've got your death metal bands and you got your most popular, and then you've got your funeral bands and your grindcore and all that stuff. And you've got popular bands inside of all of those genres. Now, I really enjoy the music. But my question today, after a long explanation here, is this music viable music, or is it just noise? I was watching and listening to Cannibal Corpse earlier. And one thing I noticed about the genre itself, and Cannibal Corpse and Infant Annihilator really epitomize this type of sound. It's just a wall of extreme noise. There's no really defined beats. Even the drumming with the super fast double kick and all the blast beats, it's not like rock or pop or country where there's a defined beat and there's extreme dynamics. Now, some metal bands do have a lot of dynamics, but if you listen to like the song I was listening to, I Come Blood by Cannibal Corpse, there's not a lot of dynamics. It's just wall of sound, extreme, right at you. And I was watching the bass player, and the bass is so low in that genre of music. It's recorded at such a low level, combined with when they play live, it goes so low. It creates this sound, and you can't really, it's not like a normal bass player where you can hear definitive bass notes, boom, 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 boom. You don't hear any of that. It's just, and it's almost like fog, or if you watch the new movie uh, about the vampire. I've forgotten the name of the movie right now. Anyways, if you watch horror movies and they have this feeling of doom that comes over you, that's what I felt watching Cannibal Corpse. The music just gives you this feeling of doom, impending doom, and it just, and it envelopes you. It just covers you completely like a fog or a mist or something. Now, the guitar tends to be very heavy riff oriented. There's not a lot of rhythmic playing, if any at all. It's very riff oriented, and it's extreme. And it also is just 16th and 32nd notes coming at you at a very, very fast rate. A lot of the extreme metal music is played extremely fast, like some of that Infant Annihilator and Cannibal Corpse and some of the other bands that are in that area. The speed at which those guys play is unbelievably insane. Now, will this music ever break out of its little niches and start to become popular? In some ways it has. In some, like I said, would you throw Korn in there? Would you throw, of course, Slipknot in there? Those are popular bands. Of course, Testament, as I mentioned earlier, they're very popular bands in that niche. Now, Korn, Slipknot, Testament, Meshuggah, they sell out every show. I mean, these are popular metal bands, but there's very few. If you think about how many popular rock bands there are over history, there's thousands and thousands. How many extreme metal bands are popular? Much, much smaller group, So the music has its definite fan base that are undying fans, and they'll always go to the show. But in terms of selling out, being on TV, selling out their, for commercial success, to make lots and lots of money, selling out to be in ads, that kind of thing, because that TV, money, and advertising, which relates to money, these are all considered sellouts in most music genres. If you hear a Queen song in a commercial, did Queen sell out? Well, some people say yes, some people say no. It's a business opportunity, just trying to make money. I get it. But most extreme metal bands, they take this very seriously, and they refuse to sell out to advertising, to TV, to commercialization. They will not do it. And I have a lot of respect for those bands. I really do. I mean, I do understand, Queen and David Bowie and the Beatles and, Elvis Presley, whatever, all the biggest stars, Michael Jackson. I understand they're money-making machines. So they're not really considered sellouts as much as extreme metal bands. Could you imagine Infant Annihilator being used in some TV commercial to sell a truck or Pepsi or a restaurant or something? The music just doesn't appeal to an audience that wants to show up at Tim Hortons and have a coffee and relax because the music is so, Now, maybe in the horror genre, you could see bands loaning their music or selling their music to movie directors and stuff to be used in horror movies. I could see that happening. But can you really think of any actual songs from extreme metal bands that are in horror movies? Not very many. They won't even sell to horror movies, even though their music fits in with that genre really, really well. Not very many. Now, maybe some of the lower bands in terms of popularity, their music is being used, but not often. Not often. But guys, hey, let me know if you guys are metal, aficionados and know a lot more than me. Let me know. Give me some bands that have actually sold out, so to speak, if you want to call it that, and have sold their music to movie producers and directors to be in horror movies. I'm not really sure. Off the top of my head, I can't name any off the top of my head. I don't even think, like Metallica, I don't even know if they've actually sold their music to be in commercials. I think Enter Sandman, I think I've heard that in, maybe not in movies, but definitely in commercials and stuff. But again, I don't consider Metallica in the extreme genre. So Metallica is more rock to me now. Because if you listen to Infant Annihilator and then you listen to Metallica, they are on the complete opposite ends of what would be considered metal. That's for sure. So anyways, guys, let me know what you think about metal. Is it ever going to blossom and become popular and somewhat mainstream? Or is it just going to stay in the basement and it's one of those things where it's always underground, it's always secret, and when you go to a concert of a band, it's almost like you got to dig out the tickets. You've got to go through an incredible journey to find the tickets. But then again, if you're in that genre, in terms of being in that scene, in the scene in a city, you're more hip to where to go to get the tickets. For me, I'm not in that scene, so I really don't know exactly where to go to find underground band tickets. And I don't usually go to those concerts too much. I don't want to get caught up in any mosh pit. I'm just too old for that. Now, like I said, I enjoy a lot of the music. But I'm just curious what you guys think in terms of will it ever be popular? That's my question to you guys. Anyways, thanks a lot for watching. Get listening to some heavy metal and some extreme metal, and check out all these different genres that I mentioned, because there's a lot of really cool music out there in the metal world. All right, so keep rocking and keep drumming. Rock on.